Hello there, kia ora. Let's take a look at some of the news that's happened this week. Last Sunday, the country was awoken by a 5.7 scale earthquake felt all over the islands, centred just off the Wellington coast. Because local conspiracy theorists haven't had much to do lately, emergency services were also in town for a training exercise where a fictional earthquake in the high 5-point range just off the coast of the city was meant to be used to help them train. According to one source, this coincidence will help keep the conspiracy theorist groups going until at least Christmas, when they'll then turn their attention to seasonal weather patterns and chemtrails again. To try and calm down the conspiracy theorists in the meantime and make them feel more comfortable, Wellington wastewater pipes burst outside of Parliament to remind them of their time illegally occupying the area in 2022. In Samoa, the NZ Navy ship Manawanui sank after hitting a reef and catching fire. Thankfully, all hands were able to abandon ship safely with only minor injuries, but the risk of a major ecological event occurring increases every day the ship and its fuel supply are underwater. The event led to a wave of misogyny-filled content on social media because the captain of the ship is a gay woman. Defence Minister Judith Collins called out this behaviour in a press conference on Thursday, explaining the actions of Commander Yvonne Gray had saved the lives of those on board, and that armchair admirals who get so upset at a woman in charge they have a meltdown online when it happens, they're probably a little too emotional to serve. Unfortunately for Collins, the calls are coming from inside the house. You see, she didn't seem to realise that the most prominent of those online voices are right-wing trolls that voted for her and her coalition partners. Te Whatu Ora this week was revealed to be proposing to cut up to $100 million in much-needed data and digital infrastructure work as part of their ongoing mission to tank the health sector with underfunding and then say it's like running a business. Issues with IT and data management were cited as part of the reason apparently nurses cost too much, with fragmented data points from outdated IT systems not allowing the organisation to get a clear picture of actual staff and payroll outgoings. When approached for comment, a spokesperson for the IT industry said, "You look like you're destroying the healthcare system. Are you sure you want to proceed?" The government financial books were open this week, revealing a worse situation financially than was initially expected. While the budget deficit was expected, the actual deficit was $1.8 billion more than forecast, and government expenses were almost $5 billion over forecast due to high inflation and interest rates over the past 12 months. Naturally, the government blamed Labour for everything bad in the announcement, and the reporting period does cover some of the time that they were in power. But a major driver of the numbers was the forced slowdown of the economy on company profits and an increase in wage settlements and pensions being paid out. An increase in benefit payments and higher unemployment were also factors for the outcome. Said Finance Minister Nicola Willis, seen here showing you how to pull the lever on the trolley problem to run over the most people most efficiently, said, "Look, we re-index benefits to inflation, which means that beneficiaries will be getting less help from now on for the good of the country." The coalition this week revealed a list of 149 projects picked for fast-tracking under their new controversial fast-tracking process after requests began in March to find out the list. The list included the roof for Eden Park, a second bridge for Ashburton, a new dry dock for the Navy, and a number of housing build projects. It also includes several zombie projects brought back from the dead after they failed the resource consent process, like the Trans-Tasman Resources Plan to extract seabed material on a spot where offshore wind turbines are also meant to be going. While details around how conflict of interest was managed by ministers with self-declared conflicts leaving the room for deliberations in a move Greenpeace described as messy, it was also revealed that $500,000 in donations were made to coalition parties from individuals and organisations with projects on the list. When asked about the appearance of potential conflicts of interest, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, seen here wondering why the press would be asking him questions, said, "We have absolute standards, and it's mission critical in New Zealand that we can trust our government and our governance. That's what's built our success in our system. As soon as you start to have relative standards..." That's what he said about Michael Wood's Auckland Airport shares. Public health experts this week rejected claims by Associate Health Minister for Smoking, Casey Costello, that heated tobacco products would help up to 7,000 hardcore smokers quit, saying her evidence released last week was not backed by peer-reviewed research-based examples. The ministers faced regular pushbacks from academics and lobby groups for her seemingly tobacco-friendly policy stance and her seemingly mysterious official advice that just shows up out of nowhere. When asked this week about the issues with Costello and other problematic MP Nicole McKee, Luxon said, "What we've seen time and time again is a series of former ministers, not understanding cabinet manuals, codes of conduct, and actually not internalising that and taking action on it." Oh, sorry, that was also something else he said about Michael Wood's shares. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, seen here putting on protective gear so he doesn't get hurt when he crashes the economy, this week put a third rental property on the market, this time in Onehunga. This is the third property in 3 months Luxon has put on the market. He recently came under fire for the sale of 2 other properties, one of which fell outside of the newly reduced bright line test limits that he changed, raising questions around conflicts of interest and untaxed capital gains he made. As the conversation around capital gains tax gains momentum, opposition parties have said, "We'll just sit back and let our wealthy, sorted Prime Minister keep making the case for us." Luxon said, "It actually leads to perceptions of bias, rightly or wrong. I just say to you that that's the perception. Whether it's real or not doesn't matter." Oh, sorry, that's actually what he said about Winston Peters' claim that the Labour government had bribed the media. Luxon does not comment on his rental properties. A new report out this week from Stats NZ showed that the average cost of food has continued to rise, with a 0.6% overall increase on figures released in March. The biggest drivers for this were the cost of imported goods like olive oil and chocolate, while the price of fresh fruit and vegetables decreased as seasonal availability and stock resilience after Cyclone Gabriel returned to relative normality. The same report showed that while fuel prices are down, rent prices have increased 4.6% in the last 12 months, net disposable income has dropped 0.9%, household utility bills had increased, as had insurance premiums, primary healthcare, flight costs, childcare, and entertainment options. A spokesperson for the government said, "We are laser focused on the cost of living crisis." Right after we let New Zealand First continue to vilify trans people wanting to get involved in community sport and act whip up racism with its Treaty Principles Bill. And finally, over the next week, New Zealanders should be able to see Comet C/2023A3, also known as Shu-Shin-Shan Atlas, with the naked eye from next week, with it passing nearest to Earth on Sunday morning. Scientists believe the comet tail is made up of cyanide and did have carbon which has been depleted as it heated up on approaching the Sun. In astronomical terms, the comet will be relatively close to the planet, but there is no risk of impact, said New Zealand First spokesperson for science denying Tanya Unkovic, seen here telling people how big the needles were for the COVID vaccine and that's why it killed everyone it touched. Clearly, this is a sign from the gods that our plan to ignore science and vilify academics and experts and bring into question the curriculum of our schools is paying off, and we should continue to do so, for it is the will of the great god Offa. And that, everybody, is the news for this week. Wait, you're still here? It's over. Find another video.